Welcome, everybody, to this Sleeper Wire show. I am your host, Dirty Jobs, and with me today, I've got the Prophet. Who's how we doing this evening?
I'm hungry. I'm hungry. It's Ramadan. It's almost 8 o'clock on a Thursday night, and I got about a half hour to eat. So I'm probably gonna try to sneak in some food. But other than that, it's great. I mean, we're approaching the season of fantasy football. Somewhat, we're still far away, but I feel like we're here. We're drafting dynasty stuff. It's a good time. Draft is over. We're digging in. It's a good time.
I mean, we're on a show, man. So can we not do like chips and cellophane and stuff like that? Just
I got you. I won't chew any hard candy or anything like that. I got you. We don't want the bad reviews.
There you go. I also got Showtime George. What is going on, George? How's it going, buddy?
Fantastic, Mike. Weather's great. Life is good. We're doing a show. We've got a special guest on tonight who's more important than us, so let's get to him.
Absolutely.
More important than you two.
We have with us...
Clear that.
we need to get who's the Snickers. We know what he turns into when he's hungry.
That's right. We do have a special guest with us tonight. We got the senior writer at The Athletic, host of the award-winning podcast All In Sports. We have Jake Ciely. Jake, how are we doing this evening?
I'm doing better than your listeners. They probably all tuned out. Your listeners are just it's like, oh, Jake's forget it. We're done. Thanks.
I figured just because George was talking about the weather again or something to that effect. I'm like, yeah, I mean, the four listeners that we do have probably already did tune.
They heard me say Ramadan and probably
like I'm out. This is not.
Out of here.
This is not.
They're all Googling what that is. They're like Ram.
They misspelled it.
Yeah, exactly.
They think it's a sleeper or something.
They came across Rihanna and like, why is it talking about some singer?
That's too funny. We're going to go ahead and get into Jake's head a little bit about some of this rookie thing going on. We got a lot of draft moves right now. We're going to go focus on players that are drafted with the potential to make some fantasy impact in the redraft leagues this year. But first, let's go ahead and get into some news, boys.
Do it.
Jaguars' Telvin Smith says on Instagram that he is not going to play football in 2019.
Ouch. Ouchie.
What do you guys think about that?
Wow.
That's a very in-depth there.
Yeah, that's Hoose's take.
Yeah.
I'll jump into the fact that, I'm not getting that into IDP-wise for fantasy. Like, let's just talk NFL for a second. I'm more surprised that this hasn't become more commonplace just because of all the attention to health and concussions and CTE and all this. And then, like, you have even just not just those type of injuries, just the other ones on top of it. I feel like more and more we were going to see this, and for the past 2 years, it hasn't been as much as I thought. So it doesn't shock me as much as it really, like the Doug Baldwin situation. He had more injuries piled up. The Telvin Smith, it's a little bit shocking because it kind of came out of nowhere. But at the same time, at this point, to see the occasional 2 or 3 players do this every single year, that part of it's not that shocking to me.
Yeah, I mean, they do gotta. It sucks for the team that it comes out of nowhere. I mean, I was in a dynasty draft earlier, and obviously, I don't want to get too much into it. Obviously, he's got focus on his health, but this guy took him first. Obviously his first linebacker off the board, and the news literally just like broke right afterwards, and it's terrible. This is why we draft in the offseason to kind of somewhat laugh at the players, like you got the guy, he's not playing, but at the same time, it's I'm just happy it's not like an injury type of thing where it's like he's not playing because he can't play. He just wants to get his life correct. Apparently the team somewhat wants to support him, but they probably like, hey man, we kind of need you. We're expecting to sign you. It could also be a holdout thing. I've heard, like the money thing. So I don't know.
Well, there was the whole trade talk too, and he even addressed that in his Instagram post or whatever. But I have to say, like, I'm with you on that part of it. I'm thinking the Jaguars front office has to be like, could you have let us know 3 weeks ago? Like we just had the draft and Josh Allen did fall to us, but not the same position. And we probably could have made a move in the draft to kind of address your situation, because outside of Josh Allen, what was the next defensive player? Like, I think it was like late day 3, if anything. And I don't even think I think it was like another defensive lineman.
Yeah, right now they've got Blair Brown backing him up, Najee Good, and Quincy Williams. So, I mean, they did actually get Quincy Williams solid at, but they weren't expecting him to replace Telvin Smith. So that's a big blow.
Right, not looking for the exact immediate impact player. I mean, they were looking for this guy to be kind of the teacher and, hold the spot. It's always crazy how football works. I'm with you, though. I mean, talk about bad timing. The Patriots signed Benjamin Watson, or they're planning on signing Ben Watson back in New England.
Stud.
A stud, is that what you said?
Tight end one.
Done.
Oh, he
Tight
is.
end one, Gronk's replacement.
Sure. Tight end one if you get blocking points.
Yeah, exactly.
PPB leagues, keep your eye out. Veteran slot wide receiver Bruce Ellington released by the Patriots. Is it Maurice Harris time?
No, it's not anybody. Listen, like most of the depth charts didn't even have Bruce Ellington listed. Like they were like, oh yeah, we didn't even waste our time updating to have Bruce Ellington on this team. No, what it is, this is exactly what we saw in the first round of the draft. This was the N'Keal Harry thing, and then N'Keal Harry steps in and he's going to fill the tight end void, not because he's a tight end, but because he fills that void of that's the area of the field, that's the person that you need, that's the ability he brings. And I was one of the people out there, I don't know where you guys stood, but I was one of the ones that had him in my tier 1 before the draft, because I said if you watched him in college, I don't want to hear this, oh, he can't separate nonsense, because the fact is if you watched him play, the quarterback threw him back into coverage about half the time. And if I'm in the NFL, how much do these wide receivers separate in general? Like, take slot receivers out of the equation. We're talking about outside guys. How much separation are players really having at the point of catch? I want the guy who turns a 50-50 ball into an 80-20 ball, and that's what N'Keal Harry does. And so I think he absorbs a lot of the losses Gronk of not being there. Maybe Austin Seferian-Jenkins isn't even on the team anymore. But Demaryius Thomas, coming off that injury, Achilles injuries, those, we know that's, or not even, his wasn't even Achilles, was it? It was just a bad injury. I don't know what he has left. Harris, whatever. I mean, you look down this road, I think it's really just going to be Edelman and N'Keal Harry, and we got to look at this team that ran the ball more than they ever had in the past couple of years last year. And I think at this point, with Tom Brady being 70,000 years old, I think that's what they want to do anyway.
So, Jake, I have to ask, do you think they reinstate Josh Gordon?
I think they will if he's available to, but I'm not counting on that to be a thing. And then even if he is, I'm not counting on him for fantasy purposes. Let's be honest. Like the fact that he's got to get through all those hurdles, he's still got to get on the field. To be honest, I got to be honest with you. Look, going back to this roster, remember everybody last year that was like, "Hey, Braxton Berrios, locally." I'm just saying, this is what we always do with the Patriots. Right. It's like, oh, what's this developmental, non-overlooked wide receiver? And oh, look, they traded for Philip Dorsett. He's going to be a guy. No, this isn't the Patriots from 7 years ago anymore. So I think you look at the fact that they drafted N'Keal Harry in the first round. It's him and Edelman, and that's really it. Do you want Josh Gordon even as a wide receiver 3 if he's reinstated at this point of his career?
No.
George
really.
may. I'm surprised, George, you're saying.
No, so I am a huge Josh Gordon guy, but I more so root for him and for him to be successful off the field than on the field. I'm a realist with his production on the field.
Yes.
But as far as off the field, I want to see him succeed. I would love to see him come back and have some sort of impact, whether it's fantasy or even just in the NFL, because I root for the guy himself.
I mean, he's a young guy. I think he's only 28 years old. I mean, which is not super young, but he's 28. I do think that it's going to be Dorsett. I think a lot of people are going to overlook him. I think a lot of people overlooked him last year until they brought Gordon in. And then I think they're definitely going to use James White quite a bit. Sony's going to obviously get a bunch of rushes. And then the rookie back that they got, he's a great pass catcher as well. I think they use him as well. So I think they just scheme differently. Yeah, I agree with what Jake is saying. You're definitely, it's not going to be Barrios or Harris time. Harris is an interesting name. He could be something, but that's only if like Edelman gets hurt, I think. Other than that, I do like Philip Dorsett.
Well, I still like Gronk over Harris myself. So.
Well, no. So you say that. Kidding aside, if you ask me who's more likely to be on this roster week 11, Gronk or Josh Gordon, I'd take Gronk.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree with that. The Seahawks have released both Doug Baldwin and Cam Chancellor with a failed physical designation, which is sad, man. I like Doug Baldwin. I really like him on that team, but gotta kind of say you saw it coming. His guy has not looked healthy for better part of about 2 years now, right?
Oh, yeah, that's like you said, we saw it coming. I think I was a little bit shocked that it came today, though. Like it still wasn't like a month or two from now, like as we got close to training camp. So that was a little bit shocking. But as you said, we all assumed he was likely not going to play after what we heard. And then you watch what the Seahawks did in the draft. I mean, not only they drafted multiple wide receivers, they still went and picked up another 2 in undrafted free agency. One of them I actually kind of like in Jazz Ferguson. I thought he had a chance to be drafted. But this is obviously it's a killer for as us fans of football, fans of fantasy, whatever it might be. Doug Baldwin, in my opinion, I even tweeted that earlier today, might be one of the most underrated, almost elite level wide receivers in the NFL. Like he's fringy elite, and he never even got respect for that level. But if we want to talk about the team now, I think it just obviously opens the door for DK Metcalf to have a better chance to make an impact. But let's also not forget about David Moore either.
Right. David Moore. Love David Moore. Love him. I think a lot of people are not going to just gloss over him. This Doug Baldwin, Lockett's going to get it. Lockett was going to get it. So Harry was going to get it. So Moore. Moore's definitely going to be a benefactor here. They still don't have much of a tight end situation. I know Disley's supposed to be coming back, but he played 2 games and then there's still some hype about Will Disley. I don't get it. But yeah, I mean, hey, what if they bring back Dez? I mean, not back. But what if they bring Dez in? I think that might be a decent landing spot for them.
Do they need to at this point? Like, what is? Let's be honest. Like all the hate that DK Metcalf got for his shuttle time and his agility. Like, let's just be honest. At this point, what does Dez do better than DK Metcalf?
Well, not much. I mean, but maybe to bring him in just kind of as, not that he'd be the best mentor, personality-wise.
No, I don't want Dez to come in to mentor anybody.
Yeah,
that's a fair point.
yeah. Maybe we just move on from that whole Dez the Seahawks. Maybe it wouldn't be the best situation.
Okay, so we got the Giants. Mike Shula says Daniel Jones could start week 1 if needed. Is that just coach talk, or are we going somewhere with this?
I just want to know how bad Eli Manning has to play before Daniel Jones is, quote, needed.
That was already the case in 2018.
Right. Exactly.
To be fair to Eli, he still finished 17. Among quarterbacks, you had Baker Mayfield. He finished 16. Granted, he missed 2 games.
And let's see like the war of attrition and look at the games played for Eli Manning and the people he finished in for. Let's talk points per game for Eli Manning. Look, you're talking about somebody who was a Giants fan because they are officially they're on my ban list until they get rid of Gettleman. I'm
by myself on this bench, Jake. Don't leave me.
No, I was done. Like, so I've said this on podcasts before. So if anybody's heard me, they're gonna be like, Jake's made this comparison before. But I'm gonna make the same comparison for you guys because you probably haven't heard me say it. Is the fact of my hatred for the Giants when they brought in Gettleman was supremely high. Like I was getting mad all the time at every single move he made and mad about the future. And I just didn't want to be mad anymore. And when they traded Odell Beckham, this is the comparison I keep making. It's like when you broke up with a girlfriend, you still thought you might get back together, but then you see her get engaged and then you can move on. That's how I was. It's like he trades Odell Beckham and I moved on. It was freeing. I don't care anymore. Like if I can talk about him as an outsider, I can say the Giants are stupid, but it doesn't upset me anymore. And that's how I feel about the Giants. It's like, I laugh. As soon as they took Daniel Jones at 6, I texted so many people. I was falling out of my chair laughing at how
Jake, you remember? Not to cut you off. We were tweeting, And I was like, Dan Jones here. And then he came. I mean, much like a lot of us, nobody wanted him, but it was like, it's a joke, right? Gettleman's going to pick him.
And the thing is, let's talk about the Giants for a second as a whole, this Daniel Jones thing, because what direction is this team going? And that's the problem. If you want to trade Odell Beckham, forget the fact they could have got a better deal. Let's just throw that part of it out the window. Just say, all right, you're rebuilding. Okay, that's fine. Let's go in that route. And then you sign Golden Tate to one of the biggest contracts for guaranteed money for all wide receivers. Like, which way are you going? Just pick a direction. And I think that's the biggest problem with this team. And then you have this quote, which you brought up, which is the Daniel Jones versus Eli Manning. Okay, if you're rebuilding, you just start Daniel Jones. You start the future, let's go. Or maybe you say, no, I want him to sit for a year. Pick a direction. Don't play this game of who's going to be the best option by week one. Are you rebuilding or are you going to try and contend this year? Pick a direction, go with it, and then move on. And this quote just again proves that the Giants still don't know what the hell they're doing.
Well, I mean, according to Gettleman, they're going to let Daniel Jones sit for 3 years behind Eli.
Right.
Oh, but he did say
Aaron
he could
Rodgers.
start.
Yeah.
You know, he did say, well, oh no, this is Shula saying he could start. But there's a lot of glowing reports. Obviously, what else are you going to do? You're not going to bash him rookie camp. What he's throwing, I think I saw something he's throwing at 43 miles per hour or something like that, and Mahomes was at 44 or something. Like, I don't know, there's velocity. Like, it's ridiculous at this point. But I wish I had that. I could walk away like just like you did, Jake. It hurts me that you left me on this bench by myself, holding the Giants Odell helmet. I actually have a Giants signed Odell helmet. I'm just like, now do I get a Browns one next to it?
I have a stitched official orange Odell Beckham Browns jersey. So
I saw that. It's awesome.
That's how far I've moved on. And hey, there's still delusional fans over there with you on the bench. It's just not me anymore.
We got the
right.
Falcons.
I'm happy for you, Jake. I'm happy for you. I just want to let you know
it's
that.
freeing. Just let go, man. It's like Frozen. Just let it go.
We got the Falcons wide receiver Mohamed Sanu. He was the subject of some trade discussion earlier this offseason. Potential landing spots that you guys are thinking of right now?
I don't think he's going anywhere, honestly, because I think it's the point of everybody always tries with these trade rumors of people that are like, hey, you know what? The value's just not there for us anymore, so let's see if anybody can get interest. And then the truth is what is Mohamed Sanu at this point of his career? He's still, like, let's be real, he's still what he brings to the table is what Sanu is. He's a nice slot, third option. You can get some, help your offense, but how many teams, who out there needs him? Actually, you go back to the Patriots, maybe if they can't get anything going with Harris or Phil Dorsett, but again, who's trading anything for him besides a 6th or 7th rounder? If that's all you're going to get as the Falcons, why would you even trade him? You have Calvin Ridley as your number 2. You might as well keep Sanu as your 3. It's not, you go down this depth chart and they didn't even address the wide receiver position until undrafted free agency. So why would you trade him for anything less than that? And I just don't. This is one of those ones where it's like, yeah, it's nice. You kind of floated that. It's like your fantasy league. Like you're about to drop somebody, right, and you're just like, hey, anybody want him? Oh, look, waivers on Wednesday. There goes that guy.
You're hyping them all up, and then they're like, dude, you just dropped them. I was gonna give you a 4th rounder next year for them, and you just dropped them. Yeah, I wasn't interested.
But then they pick him up, and you're just so insulted, man. I think that's the worst right there is when you've tried to trade him, and then they pick him up off of waivers, and then they inevitably do something too. We got Jay Gruden. He says, we're expecting big things from Josh Doxson this year. Pro Football Talk says. He says, what are we expecting?
Obviously, big things, right? I mean, that's what we're being told.
I mean,
look, let's be real. If Josh Doxson could stay healthy, the big things are he has the talent to be a team's number 1. Let's be real about this. The same guy that everybody, as far as I know, I didn't see anybody out there saying that he didn't have number 1 talent when he came out of college. Maybe I missed somebody's scouting report saying opposite of that. But when he was coming out of college, everybody I knew was on board. I was saying the same thing, and I still know he has that talent. But is 100% Josh Doxson at this point, even 100% of what he was when he came out of college? Is Josh Doxson just going to be another Kevin White and another, going down to Devontae? Exactly, same draft, by the way. Yeah, so there you go.
That's where I was going to go. The hype that we're getting from Gruden is like the same thing we were getting from Adam Gase every year about Devontae Parker. This is Devontae's year. He looks great. He's fantastic. we're expecting big things. He's going to be the next Alshon Jeffrey, and he's on the injury report, and now he's not playing.
Right.
Still can't believe they let injury go.
No, I thought that was a surprise too, but I will say this, because of what happened in the draft, that's why I'm going to have a hell of a lot of Terry McLaurin on my teams, because Dwayne Haskins, first of all, is going to be laughing at the Giants twice a year for the next 10 years, which is going to be great. That's just going to be so much fun to watch. On the second part of it, what did they do? Crowder gone, so what do you need? You need to replace Crowder. Paul Richardson is fine, but Paul Richardson is Paul Richardson. So you bring in somebody who, Dwayne Haskins, the one thing that he does so well, which is, by the way, to go back to your misery, and the Giants, if they would have kept Odell Beckham and drafted Dwayne Haskins, that would have been unbelievable. That would have been like Haskins' skill set is keeping the receivers' momentum going, is not making them stop, is throwing them into open cover. So you bring in his buddy, McLaurin, who's already good at that, and they've already got that rapport from college. I am going to be drafting McLaurin in like the 12th, 13th round of every single draft I'm in.
What about Kelvin Harmon? What's your thoughts on him?
Kelvin Harmon, I was one of the lowest people on Kelvin Harmon, and this is my summary of Kelvin Harmon, and this will be the end of Kelvin Harmon because it's very succinct. He is the Jordan Howard of wide receivers.
Oh.
Because guess what? I can find 17 other wide receivers that do the exact same thing, which is everything is kind of, all right, you're a big wide receiver, and you just, all right, fine, whatever.
Man, nobody wants to be the Jordan Howard of anything. I mean, that's rough.
You don't even want to be the Jordan Howard of Subway sandwich making. I mean, like there's just no.
I think the best case scenario for Harmon is he turns into James Jones, because James Jones was all around. That's best. I don't see that happening though. But I bring up James Jones because James Jones was good all around, but there wasn't anything in his game that was like, that's amazing. He's great at this, or he wasn't the best catcher. He wasn't the best route runner. He wasn't the best athletically. He was just good at everything. Like, that's who Harmon is. And that's what I'm saying is nowadays I can find 17 different 6'2", 200-something pound wide receivers that do everything well. And that's all Harmon is, in my opinion. Like, I don't even think Harmon, Doxson getting hurt is a distinct possibility, but I don't think he gets in front of Richardson or McLaurin this year.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. What about Reed? Now we're still talking about the Redskins. Any thoughts of Reed?
What's that? The over under 6.5 games played?
Yeah, I'm going under.
I think he'll do anything this year. I think he could be a sneaky guy this year because no one's going to be on him. So
yeah, because he's not going to play. That's what you know. What I'll do? I will in all of my best balls take a heck of a lot of Jeremy Sprinkle.
Man,
that's not actually a bad move right there. And I mean, I think just mentioning his name probably put him back on the IR in most of your leagues.
Right. In the 26th round, Jeremy Sprinkle. Do it every single time.
There you go. We got the Bengals wide receiver, A.J. Green. He underwent toe surgery in the offseason. Hampered him in week 4. But he should be healthy and ready to play during training camp this summer. Where's everybody taking him in redraft? And I almost don't even want to say this because I've been getting A.J. Green in like the 4th as my wide receiver 1.
That's crazy.
So I did a dynasty startup, and I ended up getting A.J. Green in the 5th round. Now, it's a super flex, so quarterbacks are going a little earlier. But I thought getting him in the 5th round as my first wide receiver was an absolute insane value.
I think it's just a recency bias thing. If I'm in an industry draft right now that, Jake, you were supposed to be in it, but you got, stuff going on. But, yeah, I was surprised at some of the picks. I got AJ in the 3rd round, at the end of the 3rd round. Before that, Amari or AJ, who you taking?
I'm taking AJ Green. I'm taking a healthy AJ Green every single time. And
AJ Green.
Keenan Allen. I'll take it. But here to your point, you're mentioning everybody that's like in this tier for me is like the Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, and AJ Green, who are both, they used to be those, top 5, 7 range, and now they're kind of now in the fringy wide receiver 1 range. But to the point of, I've always been I'm getting my bell cow running back in the 1st round. I think if you're in the top 5, this is even more reason to, because at the 2-3 turn range of 4 or 5 picks, you can come out of that with a Thielen, AJ Green, or an Allen, Mike Evans, or Amari Cooper, T.Y. Hill. Like, that's the thing is, like, you can get 2 top 15 wide receivers because the AJ Green, Mike Evans, that whole group of guys have fallen from just the disappointments that people have experienced.
Cooper Kupp as well. I mean, he's fallen to the fourth round. What are your thoughts on Kupp? Do you think he still finishes a number one?
I definitely think there's potential for it. I don't have him quite as a number one just because all three options being there. But if you're going to give me any of them, this is going to be a little self-back-patty time. I was one of the highest people on Cooper Kupp when he came out of college. And if you guys remember, I'm sure you do. I don't know. Again, I don't know where you guys. Yeah, and I don't remember where you guys had him ranked. But if you remember coming out of college, everybody's like, he's just going to be a slot guy. That's all he is. He's limited like the NFL slot. Well, whatever. But also remembering that the NFL has been changing. Slots have changed a lot in general for like a lot of teams are using the Juju Smith-Schusters of the world in the big slot role. Slot receivers are taking more steps forward as corners get bigger. So you look at Cooper Kupp for the skill set is the same thing I said about Christian Kirk too, is that they can play outside more than you believe they can. At the same time, you saw what happened to Jared Goff when he lost Kupp last year. And if you saw also how much he liked him in the red zone, especially in the actual end zone, I'm going to take, if you give me all three of them, I'm taking Cooper Kupp every single time out of the three Rams receivers.
Yeah, in this same draft, in this industry draft, fourth round starts, Freeman goes off the board. I grabbed Cooper Kupp in the fourth round. Then Brandon Cooks went right after that, and Robert Woods went right after that. So, these guys are pretty close together.
I think Cooper Kupp, actually, I mean, just the difference that he makes when he gets out there on the field is way more than Woods and Cooks. I mean, I think that you see how Goff just kind of takes that step back, and even when Kupp wasn't there, he would look to where Kupp should be every single time. I mean, they just have such a rapport together. I don't know. I agree. I think Cooper Kupp in the fourth, that's another wide receiver one.
Stealing.
Stealing it. We're going to go ahead and talk about the impact of this year's draft on fantasy football. Are there any particular teams off the top of your guys' heads that you think picked up any fantasy relevant players? Like people that are going to come out on, like, say, Ezekiel Elliott, for instance, how he came out on the field. Boom, immediate impact. Can you guys think of anybody off the top of your head right now that's going to come out here and do that kind of same thing?
Can't see it.
I'm going to go with, and it's a quarterback position, and call it a easy way out if you want, but Kyler Murray, I mean, say what you want. The dude can run. He's got some nice weapons. He's got David Johnson. The air raid offense that they want to run there, I think it fits his skill set. I think he'll be a good quarterback too in your redraft leagues this year.
I actually have Kyler Murray as 12 in my early rankings.
Okay.
The rushing ability alone. Let's be realistic about Kyler Murray. Like the fact is, if he's running for 500 or 600 yards, and that even might be conservative. I mean, I don't think they'll be crazy enough to let him go full Robert Griffin, but we got to remember what Robert Griffin did when he first came out. We're talking about 800 plus rushing yards and the touchdowns that come with that. That puts you in the top five just because as long as you throw for 3,000 yards, which is nothing nowadays, the rushing is going to carry you so much because of what we have scoring-wise, the discrepancy in fantasy football. So if he rushes for, I would say, a conservative 550, 600 with about 4 or 5 touchdowns, he tosses 3,500 yards and 22 touchdowns, somewhere in that range, he's going to be QB 12, right around that range. So if you want to argue and say you'll take Goff instead of him, or Matt Ryan, or Phillip Rivers, that's fine. I just think that he could definitely be in that range. When you talk Ezekiel Elliott, why I'll agree with what you initially, your response, who's the no, is because I don't see anybody being top 5 at their position. But if you want to talk about RB1 potential, I think that Josh Jacobs is almost a lock, in my opinion. I would take him at this point, and people are going to call me crazy. They already have on Twitter. I would take him over Todd Gurley, not knowing what the hell's going on with that knee. I mean, do you want the knee that's like arthritic and falling apart and potentially a timeshare with Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown for the rest of the year? Or do you want Josh Jacobs, who's going to touch the ball 20 times a game? I'll take Josh Jacobs.
I'll take Gurley because I know plenty of people that have arthritis, and it's fine. Like, it's nothing. It's really nothing. My wife has rheumatoid arthritis, and she's the busiest person I know. She doesn't stop. She's always moving, and she has all the energy in the world.
She just walk out the front door, she get hit by a 270-pound linebacker?
No, I wouldn't say that, but I don't know. That's a hot take. Josh Jacobs over Gurley. Oof.
It's one spot. It's RB 13 and 14, but Todd Gurley at RB 14 is just I'm taking everybody in front. Reverse order:
I still got Gurley
Jacobs,
7.
Damian Williams, David Johnson, Chubb, Mixon, Connor, and just go up from there. Like I'm taking the guys I know should look. Anybody's a health risk. Like especially at running back position. Anybody. But let's just take when I was about to say that I know we're going to play 16 games. So the guys in front of them, McCaffrey, Kamara, they're going to play 16 games unless they have an injury happen.
Right.
Todd Gurley is going to this season. He might not play 16 games despite anything else happening to him.
Yeah, you could say that about any guy. I mean, Joe Mixon, he played healthy the last year. The year before that, actually, he missed a couple games last year. James Conner, same situation. Nick Chubb, who knows if Hunt comes in there and gets some from him. Bell took a year off. He should be fine.
No, I understand what you're saying. I'm saying there's questions, of course, but the only one going in who didn't play at the end of the season for multiple games and has this legitimate concern, and they drafted a running back despite saying they love Malcolm Brown. That should be telling in and of itself.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was crazy just because who is Malcolm Brown? Like, what has he done for you to want to bring him back? Henderson, I get, because if you have some concerns, go move up in the draft to get somebody. If you do have some concerns, even if you believe in Gurley, but you have slight concerns, sure. That's just like having insurance, like most people have insurance, health insurance. You're going to buy that, or death, life insurance. You're going to have all that stuff. So I think he was a very, very expensive one. But I, as far as other running backs, I do love Justice Hill. I think he can possibly be a top 15 back. I don't know if I just don't see Ingram getting the full reign there. And I think I can see them giving the reign to Justice Hill sooner rather than later, and him just taking off.
I'm not quite there. I kind of see Mark Ingram and Justice Hill as the reverse Kamara and Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram's getting more fantasy points than the RB2 and Justice Hill's the RB3. I'm with you in the fact that I do have Hill. I would over Gus Edwards and Kenneth Dixon. I don't even know if Kenneth Dixon is going to be on this team. The other two that I think make a lot of sense for potential top 15 running backs are David Montgomery and Miles Sanders. And again, the Miles Sanders thing, look, we know Doug Peterson at this point, and I've been talking about on the podcast for the past 2 weeks myself, is I'm not going to own Miles Sanders because he's going to be drafted as a top 15 running back, and I'm not going to buy all the risk. If you gave him to me as RB 20, 22 off the board, I'd probably own him in a couple spots. But the problem is I've seen it already. You see his ADP, it's climbing up, and people are going to start drafting him as RB 13, 14, maybe even higher than that off the board because it's the same thing we watched happen with J.J. Everybody wants to make excuses for every running back that's back in that Eagles backfield, just like they always do for the Patriots running backs. It's like, yes, the Patriots running backs one of them is going to finish inside the top 20, but it's the frustration of dealing with it every single week, and that's what's going to happen with Miles Sanders. He'll probably finish as RB 14, but it's going to be the Deshaun Jackson roller coaster ride at running back.
I completely agree that there are people who are going to draft Josh Jacobs, like you said, should be the very first one off the board. There's no doubt. I agree. He is locked to be a top 12 running back. I'm not there at all with Miles Sanders. There's just way too many mouths to feed in that background. And yes, I get that they drafted him and he's the shiny new toy, but I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to commit to him and him alone. So I'm hoping people do take him, early, and I'm glad to see that his ADP is going up. That means there's other players coming down that I believe in a lot more.
Singletary.
Oh, Singletary. I'm going to have a lot of Singletary if I'm drafting early on the off chance that two of those running backs, and I said two, aren't there by opening day because I think everybody is assuming LaShawn McCoy might get the post-June cut with the fact of how much they would save, and they're pissed off about the Avengers thing. So that's one. But the second part of it is I don't think people realize this. I would say of the three, Frank Gore's the safest, in my opinion, but Frank Gore and TJ Yeldon are both only $500,000 dead cap hits if either one are let go and don't make the team. So I don't think people realized that the deals that they both signed are so easy to get rid of both those players, where if we're down to Singletary and one other, or Singletary and even two other, because this is one of the few teams that still use the fullback, is that Singletary is going to be very intriguing in my opinion. As long as LaShawn McCoy is at least one of them out the door, I think Singletary becomes intriguing. And of course, wide receivers. Look, if everybody on the show, are any of us going to own McCall Hardman at this point with how high he's going to be going in drafts? It's going to be insane.
No. I want all of the DeMarcus Robinson shares. Give me all of them. I'll take them I'll be
because
happy.
they're going to be free.
Yeah, I'll take them. It's like I'm not spending so much on McCole Hardman. I mean, has there been any news from the NFL about Tyreek Hill? They're burying this, guys. They don't want this to come out. This is good for the NFL for us to not be talking about it, even though we're talking about it, but not national press because the NFL's not talking about it. So I don't know. Yeah, he's going to get suspended some games, but I don't see Nicole Hardman being what everyone is drafting him to be. In the dynasty, sure. Take him, sure, I guess, but he's still way too high.
And that's the thing is people aren't treating him like Tyreek Hill, which nobody would, but they're treating him like T.Y. Hilton. And that's the problem is like, you're like, oh, McCole Hardman. Yeah, he's going to step into the Tyreek Hill role and he's going to have 1,200 yards and 7 or 8 touchdowns because he's the exact same guy. Like he's still a rookie wide receiver with still a limited skill set. As you mentioned, I think that he and Demarcus Robinson could split a lot this season. And while everybody's drafting them, I'll draft the 2 Ravens wide receivers that everybody wants to just poo-poo on because they think Lamar Jackson's like already a finished written book and that he can't oh my God, what a surprise that a quarterback has not finished developing. And I brought this up on my podcast. The Cam Newton completion percentage is almost in line with Lamar Jackson when both of them started early in their career. So before everybody just wants to say that Lamar Jackson can't pass, they didn't watch Lamar Jackson in college. He still needs to grow. We know that. But you're going to tell me that he can't in year 2, and you can't. You look at last year's wide receiver crew, and then the fact that they draft Marquise Brown and Miles Boykin, and tell me that's not an improvement, and he can't take a huge leap forward. Get the hell out of here. I'll take Boykin and Marquise Brown together on my teams because one of them's going to at least hit.
Yeah, I like both of these guys. Obviously, you got to love the connection with Boykin and Jackson. Man, these are 2 guys that I'm seeing going late in rookie drafts. And give me the shares. I mean, you guys take all the higher shares. I've seen Terry McLaurin drop as well. It's funny, these rookie drafts. I mean, it's very early, so we have nothing to see, other than the picks, but I'm getting some nice late picks. I don't like the higher guys. I'd rather trade back and give me Raquel Armstead and Madison. Even I'm not high on Madison, but hey, if he's going to be the backup to Cook, I'll take it, like very late. If no one else is going to.
There's somebody with the injury concerns of his entire past. But you go back to wide receiver. Right. I was a big fan of Deebo Samuel, and you look at that situation. Everybody's just like, Dante Pettis is not a sure thing himself. I mean, if you look at where his draft capital was last year, it wasn't even that high to begin with. And I mean, that's the real NFL draft. So you have him, you have Paris Campbell, and with the Colts, he could be the number 2 because it's Devin Funchess, and what is he at this point? And as much as I was a fan of Deion Kane, you have that kind of injury and miss your entire rookie season. That's a lot to come back from. So you look at all those guys, and then you still have Deontay Johnson, too, who, I am probably one of the biggest James Washington fans there is. But another one, a lot of injuries, a lot of subpar play because of the injuries last year. Would it surprise me if Johnson became their number 2 and leapfrog James Washington? No. And if that happened, Deontay Johnson's going to have a big year.
Well, you don't think Ryan Switzer is going to be the
guy? Do I get return yards?
No.
No.
You get nothing. You get nothing.
And like it.
Yeah. You're going to start with what you get.
What about Snell? Benny?
Benny
Snell or
I think I can outrun him.
Benny Snell's Jordan Howard. There's another Jordan. That's what he is. Hey, I can run forward well, somewhat.
Somewhat. Exactly.
Sticking out to you guys.
So one of my top 2 wide receivers was A.J. Brown coming into this draft. And I think he landed in an abysmal situation in Tennessee. Can you tell me I'm wrong?
Not that it's not an abysmal situation, but I can tell you I already have a bet with the Titans beat writer for The Athletic that he is the number 2 in production and not Adam Humphries. So if that makes you feel any better, but it's just because A.J. Brown's A.J. Brown. Yeah, it's probably one of the worst situations. I was really hoping he was going to the Colts. I thought he would have been perfect for Andrew Luck in that offense. But, the Titans, look, the only thing we can hope is that maybe Marcus Mariota gets back to looking like that second step he was taking early in his career. At this point, I think you guys probably saw it where Evan Silva had Drew Lock going to the Titans in the first round. I think that they're looking at a new quarterback next year unless they get shocked. And I think we might be. This is definitely one of those situations where he was in tier 1. I had 4 receivers in tier 1. AJ Brown was one of them with Marquise Brown, N'Keal Harry, and DK Metcalf. For everybody out there, DK Metcalf was the last one, and I said, this guy's got a floor of we don't care about him in 2 years, or he could be a top 15 wide receiver in the NFL. That's how wide his range of outcomes are. But at the same time, of the safest, the one that I felt the best about was Harry and AJ Brown. So I will take AJ Brown for 2020, not 2019.
Okay.
What about you, Dirty? You got any? Who's your guys out of this draft?
Noah Fant. I really like the fact that he's in Denver. I think that
I like that too.
I mean, I don't really like Denver's outlook for next year. I mean, Joe Flacco going there is cool and everything like that, but
that's good for tight ends.
Yeah, it's great for Fant.
Right, great for the tight end position is exactly what I was going to say. I mean, if there's anybody who's going to benefit from that, it is the tight end position. I mean, he doesn't really. I mean, name like a number 1 receiver that's not Steve Smith that Flacco threw to. Exactly.
Yeah, so no, I'm with you. I'm more of the 2 for this year alone. I'm more on Hawkinson because he can stay on the field. Because Fant can't block. Let's be real, he can't. And you could develop, but it's kind of the going down the Evan Ingram route of things. And I'm gonna go back to something I was nervous when I did it, but I asked John Elway at the combine. I said, look, you've been trying to address the tight end for the past. Because I was nervous because I was about to break. I'm asking a question of like, hey, you've basically sucked at addressing the tight end position for the past 3 years. And I'm saying it nice. Yeah, it's like, I don't know if he's going to come back at me and be like, shut up, idiot. But
get out.
In his response, he said inline tight end and how hard it is to find an inline tight end 3 times. I actually went back and listened again and counted. So right now, Noah Fant's not an inline tight end. He's the flex kind of Evan Ingram type of guy. So if you look at it, probably Hewerman, maybe even I mean, you can make an argument, honestly, that even Fumagalli, all of them are better blockers than him at this point. So I look at this team and I say, well, Joe Flacco, short game. I am one of the biggest, you guys know this, Deshaun Hamilton. I love Deshaun Hamilton so much, and I actually think that there's a good chance he outproduces Cortland Sutton because Joe Flacco's there. So I'm with you. That I thought it was ludicrous when we got to the point of talking about production of Fant versus Hawkinson, and people started pushing Hawkinson up. But if we want to talk about real life of the likelihood of both of those guys playing 80% of the snaps, it's going to be Hawkinson, unfortunately, at least in year 1.
Right. The only thing I don't like is just I don't like Detroit tight ends. They never seem to produce. I mean,
you got Jesse James.
Eric
too,
Ebron just didn't have hands.
Something.
Jesse James.
Yeah, he might do something. I mean, probably not, but he's there. He's a vet, All right, stop looking at me like that, Jake. I can feel it through the radio waves or whatever. What about the rest of these tight ends? Any guys stick out that's not in the top half of the draft? I'm really a fan of what Josh Oliver could be in that Jaguars offense, considering they only have Jeff Swain or Jeff Swain. Say it.
And actually, here I'll even give you. Did you read my write up on Oliver? So I even said that he's one of the best slot and deep field tight ends in this class. And if you're talking about somebody who would surprise a lot of people, but not me, if he did finish as a tight end 1, it would be Josh Oliver. Like, I think if you want to give me odds and you said like this is like Vegas odds type of thing, and it was like Hawkinson, Fant, Oliver, and we'll say Irv Smith if the Vikings trade away Kyle Rudolph, and you're like, Oliver would have the worst odds, and I would take that bet every single time just because of the odds, because I think it's just as good as the rest. Because let's look at the Jaguars. They still don't have a true number 1 wide receiver. They're looking at a situation where you have a quarterback coming in who has a lot of experience using the tight end because he's had a great tight end to play with last year, especially. And I think if you look at Oliver and just what he is passing game wise, again, another one that's not great at blocking, but it's kind of the Evan Ingram situation. Yeah. I mean, at San Jose State, he was basically their number 1 wide receiver.
Right. So, I mean, that you got to love that position. Him falling to the Jaguars. They have nothing. They've got Marquise Lee and Dede. And I know a lot of people are high on Dede. I kind of don't get it. Like, I get it, but I don't. It's just like why are you that high on Dede Westbrook?
Yeah, because somebody needs to be the number 1 is what people say.
I guess because he's and he's cheap.
Somebody's got to catch a ball down there, right?
Yeah, it's Josh Oliver. It's just gonna be.
So Jake, I want to get your opinion real quick on the situation we got going on with the Redskins, their backfield with drafting Bryce Love. Knowing that you got Darius Geis coming back from a torn ACL, you've got Adrian Peterson that you re-signed for 2 years. Then they go out and spend some more draft capital on another running back. Is that an indictment that they're not really sure what's the health situation of Geis actually is to start the year, or
because I think that the Adrian Peterson that's the insurance play. I think the Bryce Love is for 2020. I think the Bryce Love is we have our Chris Thompson replacement and we got him at a value because if you watch Bryce Love and Bryce Love was 100%, he would have been one of the first running backs off the board and in the conversation for because that guy, you want to talk about explosive plays and being able to take him to the house. It is Bryce Love, despite what people will say about the system of Stanford and all that type of stuff. But I think Bryce Love, that's their plan. At least in my opinion, on the outside looking in, I would say Bryce Love is, hey, let's take this guy. He probably starts the season on the pup. We're not really looking for him for this year anyway. We're looking for him to be the answer when we say, you know what, Chris Thompson, see you later. We've got a new Bryce Love. We don't need to sign you to a contract because, running backs are running backs in the NFL. It's a team understanding the value of that on the flip side where they spent up for Geis. As of right now, I have Geis as a mid to high RB2. I actually have him right there with Marlon Mack and Leonard Fournette because I am optimistic because I compare him to Dalvin Cook, speaking of Dalvin Cook from before, and the fact of the same injury, but his injury was a lot earlier than Cook's, and it took Cook till the middle of last year to get back to 100% Cook. Geis is ahead of that schedule where he could be back to 100% by week 1. Now, of course, we heard at the draft was he might be a little bit behind schedule. It's still early. Behind early because just a month before that, he was early. He was ahead of schedule. So I'll hold off on moving him but if we get to a month or two from now and it's still, we're not so sure, he's going to fall back similar to Dalvin Cook. But to go back to somebody else I brought up real quickly in that thing is Leonard Fournette. I thought he was a slightly better version of Leonard Fournette coming out of college. So if you gave me 100% Darius Geis, I would take him over Leonard Fournette, and he'd be in the top 15 conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, and piggybacking back on Love. I think he could. Yeah, it's a win-win situation for them because they could play him on the Chris Thompson role, even though he hasn't caught a ton of balls. He only caught 49 balls in his whole college career. But the guy had 2,000 yards and over 2,000 yards in 2017. So if Geis isn't right, then they've got Love. So that's insurance too. Either way, I didn't mind the pick, even though you would have liked him to fall in a better situation. This was a weird draft where guys were just falling in weird places, and it didn't really help fantasy wise. I don't really see too many guys that give me this rookie guy. I just don't see that many guys that were. It's ugly. It's just. That's the way I feel about it this early on. Maybe once we see these guys in pads, and maybe we'll feel a little bit different.
You mentioned one. I love the Raquel Armstead just because he's behind Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette hasn't. He's 2 seasons in the league. He's never played a full. He's not going to play a full season. I'll give you one that I was higher on than most everybody. Somebody I work with, Emery Hunt over at The Athletic, was exceptionally high on him as well. And you want to talk about a late round one that I'm going to have on a lot of my teams, and I have a feeling his stock is going to rise. Dexter Williams went to the Packers because
I was just about to talk about him.
Yeah,
I was like, Packers got their running back. Who knows?
Should lead the way. Aaron Jones should fall into the complimentary role mostly because he's very good at it. Like Aaron Jones, let's be real, talent-wise is better than Jamal Williams. He can't stay on the field, and I think the Packers realize that at this point that he's best if you want to just give him that 10 to 15 touches per game, mostly in the passing game. You watch Dexter Williams at college, and he is the definition of hit the hole and gone. When you hear people talk about that, like he just explodes through the hole, he is the one where he finds that hole and finds where to go and forget about it. You better tackle him inside the first 5 yards or you're giving up a big play. And you put him, he's going to leapfrog Jamal Williams. He's going to be in the lead. My only issue is if Jamal Williams is healthy, Aaron Jones is healthy, does that lead only equate to 40 to 50% of the touches for a while?
Yeah, early on, he's going to be one of those guys that you're adding to your team late in the season, unless you're patient enough to hold them all season.
Right.
But yeah, he could
Almost
be one
let
of those
somebody
guys.
else draft him and drop him and then go pick him up.
Exactly. Yeah, it's terrible for that.
See, that's
person
what you do.
also
See, this is
to
what you do. You and I, like
Right.
everybody on the show, this is what we show. You talk up Dexter Williams and talk him up and talk him up, talk him up, and then somebody drafts him in the 8th round, and then they're like, "Oh my God, he's not doing anything the first 2 weeks." He drops him, and then we go pick him up in week 4.
Pounce.
And then we're talking about how he's like Aaron Jones next year.
Man. So I mean, we're getting towards the end of the show. Give me a sleeper out of this draft. Everybody, if you could give me a sleeper, who's your sleeper out of this draft?
I just gave you mine.
Give me another one, Jake.
All right, well, come back to me. I mean, I feel like I've talked about every
Sure.
damn rookie at this point.
I was gonna say Jake took mine. To be honest, I was hoping that we really weren't gonna talk a whole lot about Dexter Williams, because he is somebody I am targeting. Like I do a lot of fantasy or a lot of dynasty, but he's somebody I'm targeting in the 3rd round in almost every one of my dynasty leagues. In fact, I actually just traded back in a draft with one of our other friends, Jason, and this guy Dexter Williams is who I'm targeting with that trade back, and I picked up a 2020 second in the trade. So I'm all aboard the Dexter Williams. I think, like Jake said, he will definitely leapfrog Jamal Williams, and he may even overtake Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I could see it. What about you, Dirty Jobs?
Jarrett Stidham. I mean, and I'm still
Yeah, I
stuck
like
I'm stuck in dynasty mode, right? Like, so this
Right.
guy's one of my huge dynasty targets. I'm trying to get everywhere because I'm getting him pretty late considering. I mean, this guy is coming into a pedigree that's pretty amazing on the quarterback considering. So that's one guy I've really got my eye on. I haven't heard a whole lot of people talking about him. And again, I mean, there's like 0 draft pressure on him.
So he's your sleeper for next year.
Right, yeah.
Not
I mean,
this
not
year.
so much. I mean, but he could. I mean, you're talking about a 95,000-year-old Tom Brady, I mean,
Right.
it could happen any day.
And you're talking about a you're talking about a quarterback that plays like that.
Right,
Right.
right.
No, I mean Stidham. I'm not a. You just found
He's
somebody.
like, right.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm not a Stidham fan. I think he's safe to a fault. But I understand where people are coming from with him. I'm not a Stidham fan. You found somebody who's not in agreement finally.
Well, see, I mean, I'm not a Patriots fan at all. I just like his opportunity is all I like.
You like?
Oh yeah, if there's anybody that could get the most out of him, there's no question there. Yeah, my sleeper's Daniel Jones. No, it's not.
I love it.
Never in the history of forever. Fine, I'll break. You know what? I feel like we've talked about everybody because we talked about like McLaurin, Boykin. We talked about we even got down to everybody who's left of this, like Travion Williams because he could make Giovanni Bernard expendable. There's another one. That's the name I was trying to think of before.
What about Darwin Thompson? And it's not high.
Nah, because
I like the draft guy. Me too.
Damian Williams, because Andy Reid has shown time again. Andy Reid doesn't use his 2nd and 3rd running backs. He just doesn't. Of course, if everybody gets hurt, but they have a backup plan now. Let's say I actually think the whole Carlos Hyde signing was exactly what we wanted to see. It was, hey, guess what? This is a big guy who's capable of doing everything. Right. That if Damian Williams gets hurt, we have an option, but we're not really asking him to touch the ball too much. So I'll go with the one person I don't think we even mentioned, but barely on the show. We kind of skipped right past him because I talked about McLaurin. I'll say Dwayne Haskins. I think Dwayne Haskins is going to be a top 20 quarterback. And that doesn't sound impressive, but if you're playing in Superflex, as you should be at this point, I think Dwayne Haskins, look, he's not running the ball. We know that. He's not running the ball unless he's like Peyton Manning running the ball. Nah, he's a little bit better than that. But it's basically like worst case scenario. He might get you 3 or 4 rushing touchdowns, but it's going to be on like 70 yards for the season just because the play broke down at the goal line. But I, again, go back to the fact of the ability that I saw from him last year. And everybody's like, oh, it's just 1 year, whatever. You don't throw 50 touchdowns. You don't turn around an offense. Let's remember how bad the offense looked for Ohio State before he took over. Let's be realistic. We were talking about this team being a huge disappointment 2 years ago. He steps in at a quarterback, and all of a sudden it's like this team is unstoppable. He made McLaurin a thing. He made everybody on this team a thing. I think that Dwayne Haskins could easily throw for 4,000 yards as a rookie. Will the touchdowns be there? Maybe the 25 range? So like 4,000 yards, 24, 25 touchdowns, top 20 quarterback.
Yeah, I like it. Mine is going to be Quadri Allison. I think
that's a good one.
Atlanta has nothing. I mean, No offense, Dirty Jobs, and no, we it's not even offense to you. It's to both of us. We both like Brian Hill.
Hey,
But
hey.
Edo Smith is the judges. I don't think he's much to talk about. He's had an opportunity. And Freeman he's Doug Martin at this point in his career until he proves that he's not. He is at this point.
Not even that. He insists running head first into everything.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, Quadri's a big guy. I think he can fill that role. I think again, he's another guy that you're not drafting unless you just stash him late. The last guy you're in the draft. But yeah, he's a guy I'm definitely adding after week 6 because I don't think he's going to get much run. They're going to try to give Ito run. They're going to try to see if Freeman could be a thing. He's not going to be. I don't think they're going to bring him back. He's got a ton of mileage, ton of carries. I think Quadri is going to be the guy, especially in dynasty leagues. He's a steal, and he's going like in the 5th round of rookie drafts. So there you go.
I think that's pretty much. Didn't we cover everybody at this point?
I think so.
I guess I'm like calling Gillespie in here. Like, I mean,
well, we could go into undrafted guys. You want to go into James Williams?
Okay, guys. Now let's shift gears to IDP.
Right.
Oh wait, you know what? I lied. I'll give you a long-term one. Only because he's my boy and he's from Old Dominion, and it's not just because he's from Old Dominion. It's not just because he's my boy, and it's not just because we sat and talked for 15 minutes at the combine. I'm serious about this. Travis Fulgham is going to replace Marvin Jones for future years. Obviously not this season, but if you want to talk about somebody dynasty that nobody's drafting because nobody's taking him in the 4th round or 5th round, or a lot of times I've seen he's not even going in the 6th round, you stash Travis Fulgham. Just trust me on this one.
I like that one. I like that one a lot. Anything else, guys? Any other sleepers? That's a no.
I'm trying to think who didn't we talk about?
Right.
Everybody.
Which rookie did we not cover?
We didn't bring up crappy Hakeem Butler.
There's a reason we didn't bring him up.
Thank you. Oh, this is so great. Are you all on board with the against Hakeem Butler?
Yeah, I'm not on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't see the opportunity.
Not my team.
Here's a clue to everybody out there that when you do evaluations and everything, like, look, NFL teams aren't 100% right. We aren't 100% right. But if you see a player falling and falling and falling and falling, and everybody's like, why is he falling? Maybe you need to reevaluate. Like, I'll go back, and if my guy I like's in the 7th round, I'll go back and be like, you know what? Maybe I was a little bit too optimistic.
Yeah, what did I miss in my analysis? There was something I didn't catch.
Right.
Let me go back and take a second look at this.
Like Emmanuel Hall, did I think his one-trick pony would succeed in the NFL? Absolutely, but maybe I overinflated what he could do, and for the fact he went completely undrafted.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Emmanuel Hall's another one that I'm seeing no one draft, but I'm hearing people talk about him, but nobody wants to make a move on him, just as far as in dynasties or anything like that. And
because he got buried on an offense that's not going to be, a prolific passing. I mean, it'll be a good passing offense. I like Trubisky, but he's buried on an offense that's like we're not going 5 wide here.
Right. What about last guy? I promise, Olamide Zaccheaus.
Oh, yeah, so there you go back. That's the one I was bringing up before about didn't address the wide receiver position until a whole bunch of undrafted free agents. Yeah, look, in the old NFL, because of his size, forget undrafted. He probably wouldn't even been asked to come to undrafted. He would have been one of those guys. Yeah, and I think that's the biggest issue. Like, if he catches on, I mean, we're hoping at best he turns into Cole Beasley. I would love for it to happen because, you look at somebody and you hate to see size take anybody's career and throw it to the side, but he's at a huge disadvantage. Like, it sounds so stupid because I hate when it's so contradictory because I hate when the NFL teams ask somebody to do something different at the combine than they've ever done before. Occasionally it works. And where I'm going with this is I think that he could carve out a role as a change of pace running back if they would just move him back there. Just because he's elusive enough that give him a Theo Riddick role. I think he could succeed in that.
Well, there you go. We gave you plenty of sleepers, and in all types of leagues, dynasties, redrafts, 50 teams,
UVA only wide receivers.
Yeah, if you're in a 50-man league, we gave you some sleepers. You're good to go.
We
I think,
even gave you advice on points per blocking leagues. So
Yeah.
That's it for the show today, guys. Thanks all for listening, and ask us questions on sleeperwire.com. Follow all our podcasts. We got Dynasty Wire, Break from the Grind. We even have more shows coming out as we speak. Make sure you send us questions on the site. We usually get to those about 24 hours, usually a lot quicker than that. And you can also join our Pro-Am leagues, all of our listener leagues. Jake, thank you so much for joining us, man. That was so cool to have you on the show. Why don't you take this moment, let everybody know where they can find you, how they can follow you, how they can listen to more of you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. If they were still listening and they didn't cut out after the first 5, oh, Jake's on, we're done. Forget this. Because they know where I'm at All In Kid. I'm over at The Athletic. I have the All In Sports podcast on Wednesdays. I have an actual podcast with The Athletics as well. It's Sports Unsealed, spelled with my last name, despite being with Chris Meany and Brad Ziegler. They still named it that way. So that's just like, this shows like it fits my personality. But you can find that. And hey, for all your listeners out there, this isn't to like hijack your show, but legitimately, like if anybody out there is listening and you're not part of The Athletic, you don't have to pay full price, because if you go to theathletic.com// and use the name of the show, All In Sports, it's 30% off your first year. So I always throw that out there. And like, I always feel corny because I feel like I'm promoting on your show, but legitimately it's like, hey, you can save 30%.
Yeah. I mean, this is we I think we all saw something recently on Twitter just talking about like how we all put our time into it, and you should get paid for whatever it is,
right,
you're doing. So, I mean, you put out content, it's good content. You put in a ton of hours. You're All In Kid. You're Jake Ciely for a reason. I mean, your parents named you Jake Ciely for other reasons, but you're Jake. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
and it's not my site. It's not like for everybody out there. It's like, oh, you're so big, you charge for your ranking. No, I work for a site where you should be paying to read Ken Rosenthal and Jay Glazer and people like that, and then you get me as a bonus.
Right.
There you go.
Absolutely. And make sure you guys know that this is the reason why we do this is for chronic Lyme disease. We're out there trying to help our buddy Rob out and doing everything you can. What I want you to do is go to GoFundMe.com/RobJR. Throw us anything you can. Every little bit helps. This guy is fighting a good battle. We're going to finally beat it this year. This is our goal. We are going to beat it this year. So get on there. GoFundMe.com/RobJR. Like I said, I cannot stress how important that cause is to us. You can find me at DirtyJobs21 on the Twitter. You can find Prophet Hoos at SleeperWire Hoos, and you can find George at BFTG Pod. Guys, great show. It was really fun. Thanks for listening, everybody, and have yourself a good night.
We didn't get to Avengers.
Yeah, sorry we did not get to Avengers. On the next show. Thanks again, Jake.
Thank you.